Today we're just going to be looking at how to create galleries. There's many different kinds of galleries that you can make. The three I will be looking at are slider galleries, thumbnail galleries, and carousel galleries. And those terms, they're not like, there's no like textbook definition of all the different kinds of galleries you can create. But this is what I'm going to call them, and they're consistent with what I've used in industry over the last number of years. So I just mentioned that because you might call it one thing and someone calls it something else. And I just want you to know that, there's different terms for the same thing. So here's what I'll call a slider gallery. And you can see when I click the little arrows, the new image slides in. And you can also see that these little indicators down here are telling you, what number you're on, 3 of 4, 4 of 4. And if I click this button one more time, even though I'm at the end, it takes me back to the beginning, okay? It's important that you never have any buttons that go nowhere, right? Because that confuses the user, right? So that's a slider gallery. We also have another kind of gallery, which I'll call a thumbnail gallery. And thumbnail galleries work by clicking on like a thumbnail, right? So if I click one of these thumbnails, it changes the main image. It changes the hero image. Okay, so these are pretty straightforward to create as well. And then finally, we have the carousel gallery. These galleries work by clicking on the next image, and that causes that next image to slide up and become centered and prominent, right? So let's take a look at how to make these. We'll start with the slider gallery, all right? And before we get going, why don't we just have a peek at the finished product so that we kind of have a roadmap of where we're going. It's a component with 4 variants. Okay, and each variant is all of the same things, just organized differently. And when I say the same things, I mean it's the exact same drawings for these buttons. It's the exact same drawings for these indicator. It's the exact same string of images in here, which I've called a film strip. Okay, so you can see that it's just these 4 images laid out in an auto layout. And all we are really doing is taking this film strip and sliding it into a new position for each variant. Right, so we're just sliding it along. And that's kind of all that's happening. Then there's another frame here wrapping around everything. In the layers panel, it's called frame 4. That frame is essentially acting like a mask so that we can hide, all of the other laptop images. So you see clip content here when I turn that off. Now all of a sudden we can see all those other laptops like dangling out the side, right? But I want to hide those, so I'm going to turn clip content back on and hide all those. All right, so that's what we're going to be building. We're going to build it. We're going to set up our film strip of our 4 images, and then we're going to clip it inside a frame, and then we're going to copy that frame out 4 times, and then we're going to just slide that film strip through the clipping frame so that a different image is prominent each time. All right, that's the basic principle. Now we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it all. First thing you need is 4 images, or you could do this with more than 4 images. I'll just use 4. I'm using PNGs here with transparency. You don't have to, right? If you have like movie covers or posters, they could just be rectangles. It doesn't have to be anything. You could do this with vectors. I just happen to have these laptop PNGs. Okay, and then the very next thing you want to do is take your assets, whatever they may be, and scale them up so that they all are the size you want them to be in your final design. Okay, I can't stress that enough. If you try to do this, and if you build this component, right, and then you try to size it to fit in your design, that's a nightmare, right? Because you've got 4 variants, and each variant has 4 images in it in a certain position. And when you change things, everything's going to start like exploding on you a little bit. So size up your assets before you start creating, right? Do the design before you start fighting with the tool. You don't want to be designing the race car while you're trying to drive it, right? You want to drive knowing that everything's set up. All right, cool. So where should we start? I'm going to start with taking my images and creating the film strip, which I will do by putting them in an auto layout. And remember, the shortcut key for auto layout is Shift A. Shift A. Okay, so my auto layout has gone down. I want it to go sideways. We just click this. And I want my auto layout to like vertically center all these. You see how they're kind of like some are up and some are down, right? I want them vertically centered and horizontally aligned to the left. So I'll choose that. And there you go. Now my guys are all locked up in place. Okay, we need to do a little bit more planning before we go forward. Because look, if I have this thumbnail gallery set up like this, and my plan is to slide it across like that, right? Taking a peek, you can see that there's a chance that that one laptop will still be on the screen. Let me show you an extreme example, right? If I line it up like that, then this is fine. But once we slide across, the first laptop is still on the screen, and I don't want that. So again, do the design now and not later, because it's going to be very frustrating when you find out that all of your work is not gonna pan out. Here's another example. This guy's way too big, so I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. Right? It's not proportionally scaled. Okay, a little more space between these guys. I need even more space, more margin. There we go. Now we're in good shape. Now we're safe. All right. Everything's going to be clear of everything else. All right. Perfect. So let's name this frame. I'm going to call it film strip because it looks like a film strip. Okay. You'll also notice that our images have names. Image 13, image 14. Image 16, these names will matter when we go to animate, okay? Because when we animate things, Figma knows what's what based on the name. So if you want this laptop to move, each instance has to have that laptop with the same layer name, right? Otherwise it won't know to move, okay? More on that later. Next thing we got to do is draw our buttons. Okay, so we'll draw some buttons. And you can draw them many different ways. I'm going to draw a circle. And then I'm going to get a triangle and put the triangle inside the circle. Okay? And then I want this triangle to punch a hole into the circle. So what I'll do is select both. And then I'll use these Pathfinder tools here, and I'll use subtract selection. And this is a good time to rename that. I'll call it left button, left BTN. And then I'm going to use Option Shift Drag, and I'll rotate that, and I'll call this one right button, right BTN. All right. Now these are very oversized. Okay. These buttons are way too big, but I want them to be visible to you as you watch the tutorial. Okay, so I've made them oversized. I'm aware of that. You should not make your buttons this big. All right, now I have to create like a mask, like a mask, literally a mask, because I need to mask off the area where my gallery will live as a component, right? I'll just draw something visually so you can see it. Don't worry about drawing what I'm drawing right now. It's just so you can see what I'm talking about. So I have this red outline, and this red outline represents the mask or group that I'm going to put all of my gallery components in. So this is inside of it, this is inside of it, this is inside of it, and this laptop is inside of it. And all of these are behind this text, but in front of this background information. So it's almost like we're creating like a mini layer just for our gallery thing here. So the way we do that is we need to make a frame that is basically the size of this red box, right? We wanted the width of our artboard in this case and the height of this red box. So what I'll do is I'll get my frame tool and I'll draw out a frame the width of my artboard. And then I'll maybe just put it here, and that way I can size up the height. Okay, so again, this is just for what I'm working on. Your gallery might be smaller, right? Your gallery might only be, maybe your gallery is like this big, right? It's just a little section of the web page, in which case that's how big what your drawing is right now should be, okay? Cool, so we got this frame here. I'm going to move it over here. And I'm going to rename it 1. I'm going to rename it 1, okay? And then I'm going to take my film strip and drag it into 1. Sometimes something might happen where you accidentally drag, see that? I'm taking one laptop out. You don't want that. If you click on your film strip to select it, and then if you put your mouse right on the image you want to position and drag it, you'll get it in just like that. Now we got to get our buttons in place. All right, so I'm going to line up my buttons because I don't want to deal with positioning these inside the frame. I just want to get it right the first time kind of thing. So I'm going to drag these into my frame. Now, you'll notice something happening here. Figma is trying to put the buttons into the film strip. All right, so that's what's happening to me right now. And it's just because I'm dragging them over the film strip. So Figma is trying to be helpful by adding them to the film strip. Right, and you can now see they've been added in as elements into my film strip. But that's really not what I wanted. I want to place them on the 1 frame. So one way to do that is to make sure your mouse is just not in the film strip, is only on the 1. But maybe something about your design makes that not possible. Okay, so let's say, for example, you drag them and they end up going into the film strip, and there's nothing you can do about that. What we can do is use the layers panel to drag them out of the film strip like group or folder. So here's film strip, right? And we can look inside of it by twirling down, and then we can see, oh, there's left button and right button. I'm going to drag them out. So here they are. They're invisible because they're clipped, but I can still click on them and drag them into view, and get them where I need them. Another thing you could do, and it's time consuming, holding my arrow buttons to move them over. It's taking time. Here they come. Here they come. We could center them. Nope, can't center them. So, there's lots of ways to solve these problems. Just be aware that that is a problem which you may very, very likely encounter. Okay. The last thing we need is those little indicators. So I'm just going to draw out one circle, and then I'm going to turn that into an auto layout with Shift A. And then I'm going to press Command D 4 times, and that will get me 4 copies. And I'll just spread them out a little bit. And I'll color the first one black. Because why? Because the user is in that image. Okay, now we've got to move this in, and look, it's going to want to do the same thing. It's going to want to drop that into my into this auto layout, right? Into the film strip, which is annoying. So I could put it over here and then manually position it with my arrow keys, right? I guess another thing you could do is set all this up and then drag your film strip in. So look, if the film strip was over here, now I can, nicely arrange all of these things however I want. And now I could take my film strip and drag that in without dealing with all the other stuff. One thing you would want to do then is make sure you are adjusting the layer order so that your film strip is behind everything else. There we go. So now my film strip is behind my buttons. Okay, cool. Great. Oh, somehow I managed to lose this, but that's okay because auto layout will make it easy to. Auto layout will make it easy to put this back in. All that thing that was happening last time that I didn't want to happen is now going to make it much easier. There we go. Image is back. All right, I'm going to grab this temporarily and move it and just check that my layout is good. Okay, so I'm not letting go of the mouse. I'm just checking that my layout is good. Let me zoom in. Layout's good? Yeah, layout's good. Okay, I'm happy with it. Awesome. So at this point, we're really nearing the finish line. I need 3 more copies of this. And in each copy, I'm just going to slide my film strip through the clipping mask. Right? What's the clipping mask? My number 1 frame. And by the way, if it's not clipping, make sure you have this turned on, clip content. See that? Cool. All right, so I'm just going to option drag, and then I'm going to click on my film strip, and I'm just going to move it. Now, something annoying happened, which is that because my mouse dragged the film strip out of that layer, it thinks that I'm trying to take my film strip off the frame, right? I did technically drag this film strip off the frame. So you kind of have to think about what you want to do before you do it to get the most out of Figma. So in this case, I know the image that I want to drag into view is right about here. So what I'll do is I'll put my mouse here and hold down Shift and drag that into view. Now I'll make a copy of this one, select my film strip, put my mouse on the image that I want to drag into view, drag it into view. I'll duplicate this, select my film strip, put my cursor or my mouse over the image I want in view, and drag that up. All right, so you can see we're literally just moving the film strip. Okay, I guess I gotta change my colors here. So I'm just using the eyedropper tool after selecting the appropriate item. Alrighty. And yeah, everything looks good. Everything looks good to me. Good, good, good. This is a really good time to make sure that your film strip has the same name on every single frame. Okay, so go over to your layers panel and make sure your film strip has the same name, has to say film strip or the same thing on every single every single frame, or else it will not animate. Okay, because Figma is saying, what do you want me to animate? Right? What is it that you want to move, to slide, from thing to thing, from instance to instance? What do you want us to slide? And if you haven't named that thing the same on every layer, it doesn't know it's the same. If you call one banana and one hamburger, then it's not going to know that from instance to instance, you're sliding the same thing because it's not the same name. All right, let's do that. Let's turn these all into a single component with more than one instance. So select all these frames, select 1, 2, 3, and 4, and say, create component set. All right, this is going to create one component with 4 instances. See that? We got the dotted line, right? And inside of this, it's a component, and inside of it, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 instances. And remember, we know they're an instance because the solid diamond means instance. I'll rename my component. I'm going to call it, I'll call it Slider Gallery. Okay. And now we got to do some prototyping. Okay, now we got to do some prototyping. First thing I'll do is jump into prototype mode. Right? And I want to link up this button to this variant. A mistake people make often is they link up the entire variant. See how right now I've got like this whole thing is selected, this whole frame, this whole variant is selected. I don't want that to be what the user clicks on to go to the next variant. I want it to be this button. Right? So you can select the right button however you want. You could double click if that's what you want to do, or you can just grab it right here. Cool. And then drag a wire that links it up with variant 2. On click, right? When the user clicks on the right button, we're going to change to variant 2. And for the animation, we don't want instant, we want smart animate. Smart animate. Okay? So now we gotta test that. Right? We have to test that. Let's test it. Let's just give ourselves a frame real quick. I'm just gonna draw a random size frame. And then I'm gonna press Option Drag and just get that variant on this frame so that I could run a quick test. So we'll select the frame here. If it's frame 11 for me, I'll rename it. I'll call it test. We'll click on test. We'll hit play. I always like to test it because I don't want to do everything and then find out it does not work, because that is a bummer. Okay, so it worked, but it didn't really animate. So I'm going to go back and check. What do we got here? Oh, it looks like I forgot to click Smart Animate. So now we'll click Smart Animate. Okay, now we'll go back and try it. Okay, perfect. So it looks like I've done everything right. Great. Let's wire up the rest. So this button is going to go back from variant 2 to variant 1. And it's remembering my settings. Okay, so it's remembering that I want Smart Animate. That's good news. This one will go here. This one will go back here. This one is going to go down there. And make sure this is working, right? Make sure you're hooking up to the right thing. It's very easy to accidentally hook up to the wrong thing. See, like I just did right there. On click, scroll to film strip. That's not what we want, right? I want on click, change to, variant number 3. Now this last one, you have some options here. You can delete it. Right? If that's the end of the line, you could delete the button so the user knows that that's the end of the line. Or you can hook it up to the first one. Right? both are fine. And in this case, this button, I'm going to link it all the way back to variant 4. And now I'm going to go back to my preview, see if it's working. All right, it's working good. If it's not working, go through all the wires here and make sure all of these wires say the right stuff. On click, change to the right variant, smart animate. Okay, that's the first thing I'd check. The next thing I would check is that your film strip, or like whatever you've named this, has the same name. I'll rename this one to show you what happens here. I'm going to call it film strip, and then I'll just like put like a, the button right beside P there is a square bracket, because maybe you have clumsy fingers like me and you accidentally hit that button. Okay, let's see if that animation works now. So it's the animation from this image to this image. See that? It works. It kind of works, but it's not animating anymore, is it? These ones aren't animating anymore because Figma is saying, okay, what do you want me to animate? You want me to animate the film strip. Okay, how should I animate the film strip? Oh, you want it to slide? You want it to like slide? Okay, what will be the new position of film strip when it slides? And then when we get to this variant, it's like, well, wait a minute, you don't even have film strip on this layer. Okay, so how could I animate something that's not there, right? So if we correct it now, if we fix this and we get rid of that little mistake, we're going to get our animation back. Okay, so those are the two most common reasons why this does not work. That's it. So we would just now I'll just delete this, and we can even delete this. And I would just take this slider gallery and option drag onto our main design here. And now we'll test it out on our main design. Okay, see, obviously I didn't plan it very well because like it doesn't really fit, which is a bummer. I should get better at that. The last thing I noticed is we got to get rid of this background. Remember, a frame can have a background fill. So all of these here, 4, 3, 2, and 1, they all have a background fill. So I'm going to go back to design mode, and I'm going to get rid of that fill. I can literally just click, this subtract button here, and it will get rid of that fill. So now our design, we get to see our background again. Okay. So that's the slider gallery method. Not bad. Just get rid of that. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is the thumbnail style gallery, where when I click on the thumbnail, the main image changes up. Okay. This one I think is a little easier, but it still requires some planning. So let's jump right into that right now. Okay. Here's what I mean by it requires planning. I don't want to design it and then find out it doesn't fit the grid, which actually this one here kind of has that problem, right? It's not really fitting the grid. You can see here we're spilling over. It's not bad, but that's just basically luck. So what I want to do is block this out using the frame tool, because I'm going to need each of my images inside a frame. So I'll block it out using the frame tool. And you were probably drawing your wireframes earlier, right? So you probably have something like this already. Now you're just going to draw it out, right? Using actual frames. So I'll just draw that up to match. Okay, let's say that's what I want. And I'm going to get these guys, okay, and just move them over to where I'll do my actual work. All right, So you can see I've got my 4 images set up, and it's obvious that it's a good thing I planned in advance, because all of the size of these is all wrong, right? Like, we're gonna have to resize them. So first thing I'm gonna do is make a copy of these, because I need 2 of each. I need one to go in here, and then I need another one to go big, right? So we'll need 2 of each. And I'm gonna drag in one for every thumbnail. Your frames will need certain settings. Make sure they're set to clip content. Okay, and we don't want auto layout for these frames. So clip content and no auto layout. And we'll just start dragging these thumbnails in. Okay. Perfect. Okay. And then for this one, we want this big one here. So I'll just stretch that out to a good size like that. I'm going to name these frames. I'm going to name them 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to call this one 5. No, I'm going to call this one main. All right. Cool. So now we can group these, right? I'm going to group them. You could choose to put them in a frame or group them. There's some advantages to putting them in a frame. There's some advantages to grouping them. It's really up to you. I'm just going to use group. I'm going to Command G, turn them into a group. And I'm going to name that group 1. Okay. And then I need 4 copies of this. So Command D or drag, whichever you want. Okay. Get rid of the image inside here for like the ones you don't want. Right? Careful that you don't accidentally leave behind the frame that your image was in. Because I just did that. Okay, good. All right, cool. Now we can drag in our large versions. Okay. Whoops. Cool. And again, make sure you have clipping turned on. If you're not clipping, then this will be annoying for you. Right? Remember, clip content. Cool. So each of these should be its own group. We're all good. I'm going to select everything and create component set. Remember, that creates one component, and each of these groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, will become a variant. See that? This is a variant. This is a variant. This is a variant. Okay. Cool. So now we're just going to link these up. Okay. It's the same idea as we did before. Make sure you're targeting the right thing that you want the user to click in order to get whatever, switch up whatever image to the image you want them to see, right? So don't wire up, for example, don't wire this whole component up, right? If I want someone to click on this to get to here, you've got to make sure you select this frame, right? That has to go there. And we want on click. I'm not going to use Smart Animate for this. I'm just going to use Dissolve, I think. Or no, I'm going to use Instant. Okay, and then this one, I don't have to do that because that's already the image. So I'll make this one go here, and I'll make this one go here, right? And then this one needs to go here, and so on. Okay, What's next? This guy here. Let's go to the last one. And then we got to do the first one. I should have tested this, shouldn't I? Before I started using it, but that's okay. So I'm going to draw a frame here, and I will option drag variant 1, and we'll test that out. Yeah, works just fine. Works just fine. You know, we could have a little fun with this too. For example, we could select all of these, and because these ones are not active, maybe we could reduce the opacity on these a little bit. See how that works. You know, and there's all sorts of other things you could do. You could extend these frames. It's just creating extra work for me. You know, but this could look pretty sweet. And you can always add to it. I'm gonna take these guys, all of my 1, 2, 3, 4, all of my thumbnails. I'm gonna turn them into an auto layout. Okay. And then, you know, you don't want them going sideways, you want them going downways. Okay. So this is an auto layout in a group with this, which is called 1, right? Variant 1. I can make variant 1 an auto layout. So I'll do that. And I want variant 1 to be a side-by-side auto layout, not a vertical auto layout. I want a side-by-side one. And now I'll duplicate these guys. So I'll call this thumbs. Right, this is my strip of thumbnails. I'll duplicate that. So auto layout is now putting it beside. And then I'm just going to manually go in here and delete these images. All right. And then I'm going to resize these so they're small. And now I can manually color these. Right? I'm not going to delete these. I'm going to give them no fill so that they're invisible, but they're still there. Right? And that will hold everything in place. So I'm not going to do this. Actually, let's do it. I'll just do it 4 more times. Right? You can see it cause some kind of issue down there, making it move. You know, I'm happy we did this because it really shows how much, like how annoying it could be if you just make little mistakes that compound, and you don't just design it exactly how you want it to begin with. But there you go. So this could be anything from dead simple to incredibly, you know, overly complicated. It's entirely up to you, but you know, lots you can do with this style. Okay. Okay, so the final one we'll look at is this Carousel Gallery here. I'm using images; they're PNGs, but these could be anything. These could be other Figma elements. These could be vectors. This could be a text frame. You know, so if you're like selling cell phones or something, and you want to switch through the different like sales plans, I guess. Anything, t-shirts, anything. It doesn't have to be an image. It doesn't have to be a vector. It can be a vector. It can be an image. But just understand that this is a flexible tool. Okay? So let's kind of look at it in the big picture first. We'll see how it works. And then we'll see how we can make it. So I have a component with 8 different states, 1 for each image, right? And each state is a frame, a clipping frame. And inside that frame is 7 thumbnails where they're small and 1 thumbnail where the image is big. So I guess not a thumbnail. So I'm just going to select them all of my variants, all 8 variants in the component. And I'm going to turn off clip content so you can see what that looks like. See? So we just have this film strip again, and we're literally just dragging the film strip through the component frame, the variant frame, one step every time, and manually making the image larger and bringing the opacity up to 100. Okay, so I guess it's probably more work than it is complicated. So let's get started on that. First thing you want to do, as usual, is size up your stuff. Okay, the last thing you want to do is all this work, right? The last thing you want to do is get all of these film strips set up, and then find out they're the wrong size, right? That's just not good. That's bad news. Another thing you want to do is make sure your images are fairly closely cropped. Okay, let me show you roughly what happens when your images are not closely cropped here. I'm going to uncrop these images because I cropped them in advance. Okay. So here we've got two images, and you can see how they're like hitboxes. The hitbox is the place where you click to make something happen. Their hitboxes overlap. So this whole area, both images are in this area where these boxes are overlapping. Okay, so you don't want that, because if these are close together, it becomes a problem where you think you're clicking on this laptop because this layer is in the foreground. You're actually clicking on this laptop. And if this one was in the foreground, then anytime the user clicked here, they were actually clicking on this laptop. Okay, so you want to crop your images. And the way to do that is just select the image, click here, image, click crop, and you'll see the little blue aimers, and just tighten them up. Okay? You could pre-crop in Photoshop if you wanted to. It's an option, but one problem with that is maybe you need to change the crop, and you don't want to go back into Photoshop and do it all over again. All right, cool. So let's get these aligned and spread out evenly. And to do that, I'm going to use auto layout. So Shift A, name your new auto layout. I will call it film strip. Okay, call it film strip. And I don't want them going that way. I want them going that way. I'll spread them out a little bit. Again, you'll have to plan this out. Do a mock-up. Know how big you want everything. And I already have the opacity of all of these set to 60. I'll just double check. Okay, so opacity is set to 60. And now I know that I need 8. I need 8 of these. So I'm going to make a copy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 copies. And then we've got a little bit of manual work to do here, making one of them big. By the way, use auto layout. Don't use bottom or top align. Use center left. Right? So now I've got to make them big, and I also got to make the one that I make big has to be 100%. There's another opportunity for error here, which can occur if you're making the one that you make bigger. If you make it a different amount of bigger for each side, that's going to change the location of all sorts of things. So you want to make sure you get it kind of close. And that's just another instance of when planning is really important. So maybe you set up some grids to do this. Maybe you just draw yourself a square and you keep that square as a reference. Maybe you keep an eye on this number here. Right, the height number. Sorry, actually it's the second number that's height. Oops, that's the wrong one. There's no wrong way to do it. Just want to do it. Of course, in this case, keeping your eye on the height number wouldn't work. And the reason is that these laptops all have kind of different crops on them, and they're in different positions. So it can vary. One way you know that you roughly got it right so that all of your film strips are now, ending at about the same. They're all about the same size still. All right, cool. All right. So from here, what we need to do is crop off just the section we want, right? We don't want to see, I don't want to see all 8 of these. I only want to see the ones that will be part of our carousel, right? So in that case, that would just be like these ones, right? The ones in red, right? And then I only want to see these ones, right? So we need a frame, and we need that frame to crop the content. And how do you know the size of that frame? Well, you should go back to your design and figure out how big it needs to be, right? So maybe I want mine to be, I don't know, that many columns, right? This many columns. I just drew a rectangle, but I actually need a frame. So I'm going to get a frame here, set that up. Okay. And I'm going to check, yeah, it's tall enough. Perfect. I'm going to call this frame 1. And then remember, I need one for each and every, film strip, right? Each and every iteration. So I'll just drag and move, and I can actually just press Command D to get all 8. Oh, is there 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, you know what? I bet I just haven't got these distributed. Yeah, there we go. So there's 8. Perfect. Cool. All right. Now we just gotta kind of position these into place, right? I'm just gonna drag, select the film strip, and then drag the image into place. So we have a problem here. I did not plan this well enough, and my laptop doesn't fit. So I need to move the margins in just a little bit. Problem is I need them all to be the same. Because I have auto layout, I can select all of these auto layouts and move those margins in, and it's gonna fix all of them at once for me. So I'll just go to 90 and see what that gets me. Okay, I think I can live with that. Remember, if you click and drag, you'll end up removing the one image, right? You want the whole film strip. So select the film strip, then put your mouse over the image you want, and then drag that in. Man, it looks like I need a little bit less margin. So, planning, folks. We gotta learn to do it. Cool, next. Let's get this in. You could center these too, right? You could use your centering tool here. Vertical centering, that is. Cool. Next. Right, maybe you cheat a little bit. Actually, maybe this one's just too big. No, whoops. I'm gonna scale this one down a bit. Okay, now I want to center this, so I'll use that. Better. That's better. We could also turn on grids with this, right? So maybe I want, 4 columns. I could turn on a layout grid, and I could put columns, and I could do like that, right? I could do 3 columns, and that could maybe help me sort of shape all this up a little bit better. Whoops. Cool. Now, just in case I'm moving these in, and honestly, the harder part with this is just getting used to manipulating these groups inside groups that we're always dealing with, right? And knowing when am I going to click and it's going to do what I want, and when am I going to click and it's going to do something that I did not want. Excellent. Okay, cool. We're good. All right. So there we go. We got everything basically set up. Now it's just a case of setting up these interactions so that when I click on something, it does what I want. And remember, we need components to do that. Specifically, we need a component set. Okay. Again, the reason we create everything in advance is because it's way harder to do all this once you've made it a component, right? Imagine you're looking at this, just this. This is all you can see, right? And you're trying to duplicate this and remake all of these. It's just annoying. It's just not nice. So we'll go to prototype, and we'll click on this laptop. Remember, make sure you've specifically clicked on this laptop and not the entire film strip, and hook it up to variant 2. The animation will be Smart Animate. And as usual, before I go any farther, I'm going to test it. Option drag your variant out onto a test frame, click on the frame, hit play. All right, cool. Seems to be working. Good. So now I can keep going. This one will go back. This one will go forward. This one will go back. This one will go forward. Every now and then, just glance at this to make sure you're doing what you think you're doing. Because when you do all of this, you get one wrong, just because you weren't, paying attention. It's hard to find. Whoop. If you ever click too deep, so I click, and now I'm too deep, I want to go back a level, you can just hit escape, and that will take you back a level, and you could probably do what you were trying to do. So yeah, looks like we're all set up. Pretty cool, pretty smooth. I think this one's smoother than the original one I did. And that's it. So yeah, I guess it's kind of complicated, but it's really not that complicated. I drew mine with a white background here. We can get rid of that, right? Just turn the fill off. Done. All right, I hope that was useful, and thanks for watching.